Hello and welcome to Worth the War. My name is Kimmy. The purpose of Worth the War is rethinking love and relationship and sparing hearts by preventing abuse. If you think we can do a better job with love and relationship than we're doing today, you have found the exact right channel. I hope you'll join us by subscribing, pressing the notification bell, engaging in the comments, as well as finding us on our other platforms. We're out on Twitter and Instagram. We have a small community on Facebook. We're actually giving TikTok a try, and we are also on worththewar.com. I am interested in sharing something with you today about stigma and how it is actually contributing to more relationship abuse in our culture and many cultures worldwide. We really weren't going to cover this today, but sometimes life takes you on little journeys and we need to stay flexible and try to follow things as they come. So I really want to share with our YouTube community what we see happening and seeing where we can work together to really help make a shift in this monolith that is the stigma around relationship abuse, sexual abuse, relationship violence that we see. I was actually spending a little bit of time with a social media expert who said the reason that many accounts like this, Worth the War, don't grow quickly is because they cover really difficult topics, many of which carry stigma. And when stigma is involved, whether you really are engaged in it or not, people want to avoid it. The problem is, it's accounts like this that we can actually get into the hands of people that could make a dent in the awful numbers that we see in relationship violence. We know that 1 out of 4 young women and 1 out of 10 young men are the victim of relationship violence just in the United States alone. It doesn't even include the global numbers. We know that globally speaking, the number's much closer to 1/3 of young people who are in unhealthy or violent relationships. So when we start thinking about that and we start thinking, how can we really go at this problem? One of the first roadblocks we encounter is stigma. When I put out videos about relationship violence or even rape or pornography, it isn't to be graphic, it isn't to freak people out. It's because these things are real problems that are attacking our cultures. And because we run from them, we often can't get it into the hands of people before it's too late. And by too late, I mean we often get it into the hands of people once they've already been abused, or they're so starry-eyed in the midst of the grooming process of abuse that they cannot hear it. We have some things that we think about that, some things we're working around to be able to make an impact in this area. But that's not what today's topic is about. Today's topic is about one of the best ways that we can overcome stigma, and I hope I can encourage some people to join our communities and be vocal for our community to help break down the stigma, is to understand the nature of the fight that we're in. So one of the best ways to do that is to give you even a bigger picture, and we're just going to pick the teen population today. We're talking about our younger kids between 6th and 12th grade. What exactly is going on in these relationship groups? And we're not going to spend hours on it, but just a few minutes so that we can say, just maybe we need to step up and jump over the stigma and join the communities and be part of the conversations if we're going to make a change. So let's dig right on in. We try to be really content focused here. So we know, and I mentioned it before, but I'll definitely put the link down below, that 1 out of 3 young people find themselves in an abusive or unhealthy relationship. The problem with that is that it's kind of hard to define, it's a little bit nebulous. So we would define that as violence, either physical, sexual, or emotional violence on someone else's person. It's a disrespect of their physicality, their mental state, their sexual choice and volition, or even their financial state. They might be financially being abused. Also includes lying, knowingly lying, consistently using that as manipulation. Isolation is also on the list of things that we need to understand are part of an unhealthy relationship, which can be physical, can also be mental. It can be, yes, you can still hang out with your family and the other people, but don't trust any of them, don't listen to any of them. It's isolating this person so they're a target onto themselves. And then control and manipulation, which I will put down below and maybe even up above, a video about how control is a big aspect of abuse and that we need to be able to identify it and also make sure that our children are not contributing to the problem of control unknowingly, unwittingly. intimidation using words or threats, or even you can just use your eyes to intimidate someone into falling into line and listening. And lastly, confusion. It's one that kind of gets left off when it comes with abuse. But abusers are not wholly awful people. They usually have other relationships. They have some people that actually often will like them because if they're capable of grooming and heaping on the kinds of things that require someone to really attach to you, then they're pretty good at times, and they will do that if it serves their purpose. So not everyone's going to think they're abusive, and quite frankly, usually the cycle of abuse is quite confusing because it goes from really loving to really awful, really loving to really awful, and then kind of a shift in between. So confusion, if you think, oh, this person's great, but then the next month I'm crying and sad, that can actually be a sign of abuse. So we kind of look at these things and we say, okay, those are some markers of unhealthy relationships. The problem is that only 1/3 out of that 1/3 ever tells anyone. And often if they do tell someone, it's not someone that really has any authority to do anything. It's often a peer or someone that may be going through the same thing. So we really don't have any kind of system or channel that says this is really encouraging this youth population to get help, to call out the people who are doing the abusing. And truthfully, the ages that it's starting are really young. 72% of kids who are 14 and 13 believe themselves or identify themselves as dating. That's pretty young, that this population, at 1/3 where there's abuse going on, it's starting young. There's lots of things that we could probably cover that talk about some of the things that could contribute to that, but that'll be in a different video. But we know that this abuse is starting young and it is just progressing throughout the high school years. They are subject to long-term consequences like alcoholism, eating disorders, promiscuity, just giving sex away just to make themselves feel better, thoughts of suicide, and violent behavior themselves. So they're setting themselves up for more abuse that they then have this festering wound that they haven't done anything about. So when we get a sense of how huge some of these problems are, and one of the numbers that really breaks my heart is that 50% of young people who experience rape or physical or sexual abuse will actually attempt suicide. So we know that there are big problems that come along with this abuse, and we know the number of people being abused are pretty huge. How can we combat stigma? How can we prevent the important information that needs to get out from being shut down before it even gets voiced? One of the things that we can do is each one of us can make sure that we are willing to join groups, follow accounts, do things that stand with people who are willing to put the moniker of preventing abuse, healing from abuse, helping people who are survivors or victims of sexual or relationship assault and violence. Stand with them. That is one of the best ways that you can support a voice who's willing to stand up in the darkness, is to stand with them. And the more numbers they get, even if it's just kind of a relaxed number, you're just there but you're not saying anything, the more numbers we get in these communities, the louder our voice, the more we get to be heard. I was really sad when a social media expert basically told me, you are going to have to run uphill twice as hard as 90% of the other groups and accounts and voices who are out there trying to get things done because of the topic that you are trying to work in. It lays in our hands then to say, we're willing to run uphill. We're willing to be associated with these topics. We're willing to speak out. We're willing to have our voice. I hope that you hear and that you're willing to join our ranks, either here or on other platforms, that you're willing to share with your friends that there are people like me, and then there's obviously other people as well, who are trying so hard to get into the hands of people who have never experienced relationship violence before they are in the situation where it gets to be to the point where it's too late, because once we're hooked on that cycle, it's very difficult to get any kind of preventative information out to them. So we're kind of against the clock here. So it was a sad thing to be told. I was a little disheartened, a little depressed at first, but now I understand that just means we have to work a little harder. I really thank you for being here today. I really thank you for being part of this fight and not running away just because some of the topics we cover here are hard. And I thank you for supporting Worth the War, and I hope that you'll join us in other places as well. I hope you have a great rest of your day.